Hey, Coach D here from All Out Athletes. And this is our All Out Athletes podcast with Coach D and Dr. G. And if you're looking for a Monday morning champion, as I give a locker room speech every Monday morning at 8 a.m. to be your Monday morning igniter that boosts that energy and focus to get you ready to go into the game, except maybe going into work or going into training. So check that out. On this podcast, we talk about how to be totally into your training. So basically, the main two things are how do you do that? Energy and focus. And everything we talk about is how to keep you on that line to stay energized and stay focused. And what takes you off that road? What takes you away from that? And today, we're going to talk about one of the things that bothers athletes that stops them from going all out, and that's failure. How do you handle failure? How do you respond to mistakes? So joining me again is author, motivational speaker, the great Dr. Gilbert. How's it going, Doc?
Hey, Coach. Here's the deal. Remember in the good old days when we actually used to teach classes and have seminars? And what did we used to do? We had two lacrosse balls, and one ball would throw down, it would bounce up, throw down, bounce up, throw down, bounce up. And then the second one, you throw down, it would be an indoor lacrosse ball, it would splat. So what were we trying to show, Coach D?
We were trying to show that how high do you bounce after you hit bottom, after you fail? What is your bounce back ability?
Yeah, it's called bounce back ability. Are you gonna, when you hit bottom, when you strike out, when you don't get into the college you want, when you flunk the quiz, are you just going to give up and quit? Or are you going to say, wait, this is a setback for a comeback. This is a setback for a comeback. A setback is a setup for a comeback. So you have to have this grit, this determination to just make everything a learning experience.
Yeah, it's actually funny to me when athletes make mistakes. They go, they act like they've never made a mistake before. You knew it was coming. So why not figure out how you're going to respond in that moment? See, a lot of athletes, they don't think of it that way. They just, I'll just react anyway when it happens. But the problem is when you make one mistake, you wind up making two mistakes. Because now you made one mistake, and in games that just keep going, like hockey and soccer, and there is no break. Like in football, if you lose the ball, you get 35 seconds for the next play. In other sports, you just got to bounce right back, and there is no time. So what's the second mistake? So first you make a physical mistake, and then you make a mental mistake, and you become a drooper. You start to droop. So So Doc, what would be a good technique to get them to bounce back after they make a mistake? Because a lot of athletes struggle with this.
Well, last week in my graduate sports psychology class, I wanted to have Vince Lombardi speak to the class, but he couldn't because he was dead. I wanted to have John Wooden speak to the class, but he couldn't because he was dead. I had the current Vince Lombardi and John Wooden. His name is Dr. Jeff Bulington from Mississippi. He's a top chess coach in the world. So I asked him that question. How do you want your kids to respond to a loss? And he said, when their parents see them, I don't want their parents to know whether they want a loss. I want them to have the same expression. You know, you don't get overly emotional when you win, and you don't get overly depressed when now you might feel it, but you don't act it. You know, like getting overly emotional when you win. You know, coaches say, act like you've been there before. You know, you don't go crazy in the end zone. You act like you've been there before. You lose, you don't start crying. You act like you've been there before. So that's Dr. Bulington's advice.
I like that, Doc, because if you're all the way up here, if the result of what happened drives your feelings either all the way up, then if it doesn't work out, it's going to drive them all the way down. So we have to have, we can't have this all day. That's a lot of energy wasted. Oh, we're winning, we're losing, we're winning, we're losing. And then the focus is your focus and energy is determined by the result of what's going on instead of what's next, what's the next play, what's coming next. And instead it's, we're winning, we're losing. You know, there's also, there's a story about the great Lou Holtz. Now, Lou Holtz was a football coach from Notre Dame. And I believe he was golfing with Lee Trevino. And Lee Trevino is a great professional golfer. And so Lou Holtz is golfing and he's hitting the ball into the woods. And he gets over there, hits it, lands in the bunker. And every time he makes a mistake, he gets real angry and mad, starts cursing a little bit, right? So Lee Trevino eventually looks at him and says, "How dare you?" And Lou Holtz says, "What do you mean?" He said, "You're a professional football coach. I'm a professional golfer." He said, you haven't worked hard enough or long enough to be upset. You're not supposed to be that good. You haven't. I'm the professional. It's not supposed to come that quick. And I think that's what happens with a lot of athletes. They think in their mind, oh, they can't. They don't believe it takes a long time to get certain skills. And every mistake you make is a step closer to getting that skill. May take 50 times, may take 100, may take 200. But as long as you're using the right strategy, as we talked about, Doc, you can fail forward. A lot of athletes fell backwards, like that frustration. Frustration does not work. It does not work. It gets in the way of your performance. Now, it may build your energy up. Yeah, I'm going to get them now. But your focus, you have to have focus and energy moving in the right direction. It may make you more aggressive, but you don't really focus on the technique.
Well, going along with the Coach Holtz story, imagine you went to the dentist and you had a simple cavity filled. And, you know, the doctor or the dentist said, okay, yeah, it looks pretty good to me. And then he starts jumping around, high-fiving the dental hygienist. He's going crazy. Like, you know, you'd say, what's wrong with this guy? You know, I mean, you don't want to be overly emotional. You don't want to be overly emotional when you win. You don't want to be overly emotional when you lose. As we said 600 times on these podcasts, it's not winning and losing, it's winning and learning. Every loss is a winning, learning experience. Every win is a learning experience.
Thank you, Doc. That was good. Find somebody who's acting the way that you want to act to get to the next level. The 10 most powerful 2-letter words. If it is to be, it is up to me. If it is to be, it is up to me. And it is all up to you. It's all up to you. If you can think of it this way, every failure is not failure. It's feedback. Find the feedback, because we know feedback, is the breakfast of champions. Get the feedback. Don't allow the failure to stop you from moving forward. Thanks for joining us this week. Thanks a lot, Doc, and we'll see everybody next week.